Grace and peace, everyone. How you doing? This is Malik, your addiction recovery coach, coming at you, giving you the real in recovery. Welcome to episode 1 podcast from the Freedom from Addiction Facebook group. The title of this, the topic of this podcast is relapse prevention, and I just want to dive right in. If anyone's joining, please send comments so I can know that you hear me, and just to show me that you're here. So first, I want to thank one of my clients for this topic. I had reached out to my clients in the Facebook group community and the members there, and I asked them to share, what would be a good topic, something that hits their heart, or something they want to know more information about. And one of my clients came up with this one, relapse prevention, and I thought this was just a great topic. So first I just wanted to ask, what is relapse prevention? What is it? So if anyone cares to comment, anybody join, they can comment on that. I know there's a bit of a delay on here, so I can kind of wait to hear from you. And another thing is, in the future, thank you, Quay. In the future, I will be also asking members to come up with more topics, and I have already about 7 or 8 topics that members have requested they want to hear about. So hey, good afternoon, Xavier, good to see you here. So yeah, I will be doing those in the future, those topics. So if you want to type in what you think relapse prevention is, you could type that in. And in the meantime, I looked up the definition and wanted to get an accurate definition of it. And relapse prevention is a set of techniques, tools designed to help individuals maintain long-term recovery from addiction. And it does that by identifying triggers, developing coping skills, managing high-risk situations to avoid returning to old destructive habits and behaviors. So, in active addiction, and when you make a decision that you want to stop using drugs or drinking alcohol, it's so important that we start to identify the triggers when we have made our mind up. Yes, trust in the process. We tend to get impatient during the process and end up sabotaging ourselves. Absolutely, Xavier. I mean, I think the reason why we just being in active addiction, we become very impatient, we become very selfish, and we want everything right now. And I think when we come into recovery, we carry that over, that same addictive mindset, that same mindset to want everything right now. The same way when we wanted our drug of choice, or we wanted to get drunk, or whatever it was, we wanted it now. So that mindset is an addictive mindset that we carry over to in recovery. So yes, we have to be very aware of that. So, and Quay, preventing going back to your old ways. Yes, absolutely. And these are definitely the for relapse prevention. This is definitely the whole thing of relapse prevention, and it's also coming up with a plan to have in place, because when we stop using drugs, or we stop drinking, the cravings and the urges don't go away. Hey David, good to see you on here. Yes, impulsive, yes, impulsive, compulsive, yes. So these things we definitely have to identify. We have to have a plan in place, because those cravings, the compulsive thoughts. I remember when I first stopped using drugs and drinking alcohol, the thoughts were like overwhelming, like 1,000 thoughts a day of wanting to do it. And that's the start of getting it. Basically, it starts like emotionally, then mentally, and then the next thing you know, you're carrying out these thoughts physically. And that's the relapse. The relapse happens way before we physically go out there and use, or we go out there and go back to those destructive habits. It happens before that. It starts in our mind, in our emotions, what we're feeling. So it's very important that we catch those things, and that we come up with a plan. Absolutely, David, being vigilant on the triggers, remorse and guilt. Yes, these are all things that play on our emotions. Guilt, shame, the triggers, the cravings. These things play on our mental and our emotion before it carries out to being physical. Yes, thoughts lead to actions. That's good, Quay. Yes, so we definitely have to. This is a part of my strategy. The 3-step strategy that I have, the 3 different phases. It ties right into almost every topic that we could talk about. Overcoming your addictions. For instance, the first phase is connecting to God, renewing your mind, and finding your purpose, and living in that purpose. So the thoughts, if we don't have a renewed mind, and we continue to let these destructive thoughts and I call it stinking thinking. If we keep letting these thoughts come into our mind and take control of our mind about using, and the compulsive thoughts of wanting to use. And so how do we replace those thoughts? How do we change those thoughts? We have to now find things to put in our mind that are going to take us in the opposite direction. So it's things that are gonna build us up, to put us in a positive mindset. One of the examples for me is that I used to think that life without alcohol and drugs was boring, and it was just boredom. But once I started changing my perspective, and I started saying, you know what, this is not boredom, this is peace. So things like that. It's about, instead of listening to people that are talking about constantly using drugs or drinking alcohol and being around them, it's about now listening to positive. For me, one of the things I did was YouTube videos, like filling my mind with inspirational and motivational things. So this is definitely the mindset is so important. Like I said, the first phase is connecting to God, renewing your mind, finding your purpose. And then the next phase in the strategy is finding your support group, and finding your support group, being around those who understand where you are, that have compassion, because they have lived experience in there, and they can not only encourage you, but they can also hold you accountable. So these are definitely great things you all are putting in the comment section. The mindset shift, yes, it does. Like we said, starting in the mind. And then the last thing, so we have connecting to God, renewing your mind, finding your purpose will be phase 1. Then finding a support group, your new family that you're going to be around, that you can go to now. Like, so when those thoughts come into your mind, you can call these people and say, hey, you know what, I'm having an urge here, I'm having a craving to want to go out here and use. I want to pick back up. I'm emotionally distraught right now. Something just happened. So it's so important that we have this support group, this new family that we can confide in, that we trust, that will hold us accountable, that will tell us the truth. And then from the last phase will be implementing new healthy habits and routines. So that is just about a whole new way of living, getting rid of old habits that were destructive, doing the same thing. You know, now we're going to meetings. You know, just some examples. We're now we're connecting to God every morning through prayer, reading devotionals. We're watching videos that are going to uplift us. You know, so all of these things are so important. Putting those three phases together, and that's the strategy I use to overcome my addiction. So all of that ties right into relapse prevention. It's about putting together this plan and having a constant renewing of your mind, and also having set routines, healthy habits, and daily routines. So first, let's start here. So yes, great. Yes, renewing your mind is essential. I see that, Xavier. Yes, absolutely. We have to put away those old thoughts, and and be in agreement with knowing that with a new mindset, like you said, like what you said, having that healthy new mindset, that's going to help us to change everything else. So find a friend that I see that, David. Find a friend that you can bounce those negative thoughts and feelings. Absolutely, that's the community there. That's our new support group. Having those, like I said, that all of them don't have to have lived experience, but it's definitely a benefit if you're around someone who has overcome their addiction, and they're walking in their purpose, and they're living drug and alcohol free, and that you could talk to about that, because guess what? They've been there. They'll be able to tell you exactly what they did. And we want to keep an open mind with that, and stay humble to be able to receive suggestions and receive advice and feedback, and also be able to take constructive criticism. So that's so important. And yes, Quay, with community, you realize you're not alone. It's so important to understand that we don't have to do this alone. All of this is tying right into relapse prevention, having all of these things in place. I like that, Xavier. Yes, transparency is important. You can't have pride to the effects of where you don't ask or reach out for help if you're struggling. Pride is one of the biggest downfalls. I shared that in one of the content posts the other day. Just reading in the Word. Pride comes before the destruction. And a lot of times it is very hard to reach out and ask for help when you're going through these things. They have from the meetings and recovery meetings I've been to, they said, when you're going through it, it feels like that phone weighs 500 pounds, because you don't want to call someone and say, look, I'm going through it. Can you help me? I need help. What do I do? So we have to have that humility with the transparency, being honest about where we are. First, we need to be honest with ourselves. Be honest, for me, I say with God. He knows all anyway. So being honest, and then being humble to share that, and making sure that we have the right counsel around us, the right support group, because we don't want to share everything with everybody. So it's about building that support group and that accountability team up. So yes, don't isolate yourself. All of these tie right into phase 2 of the strategy of finding your support group and your new family. So these are all so important. Let me ask you, give me an example of, first of all, what are triggers? What are triggers? Yes, vulnerability is courageous. Yes, yes, that's awesome, Quay. A lot of times, especially, speaking from the man's side, that we feel like if we are asking for help, that makes us feel weak. If we're saying, I can't do this alone. Because a lot of times, the men are taught to, hey, you're supposed to be the strong one, and you're not supposed to cry, you're not supposed to have emotions and things like that. But honestly, that is the most courageous thing you can do. Is ask for help. So that's so good. Vulnerability is definitely courage. It's the opposite of being weak. So did anybody? I know it's a little delay here, but I did want to say, do y'all have any? Um, what are triggers? Okay, Xavier, I see that. Music, some company that you keep, environments conducive to partying. LOL. Yes, that's definitely triggers. Absolutely, it's specific people, places, emotions, situations, or things that can prompt us to that can prompt a craving or urge in us to engage in that addictive behavior. So yes, these are triggers. So, and let me see what you got there, Dave. Don't let addict man tell you that no one understands. It's a lie. We must trust the other person. Absolutely. Especially if someone has gone through addiction and have overcome it and now living on the other side, free from addiction. Absolutely. Because the thing about it is, when we're in active addiction, it's always something selfish in us that tells us that, oh, nobody understands, and we feel like we're the only one going through it. And that goes back to what you all mentioned about transparency, because if we're not transparent, if we're not in a group or have a new family or community, then we hold all of that stuff in, and that stuff just continues to build up and bring forth more guilt, more shame, more resentment to ourselves, where we don't even forgive ourselves because we're not sharing these things. But once we let these things out and talk to other people about it, we will soon see that we're not alone in this. There are many people that feel like we do, and also it opens the door to help someone else, because it might be someone else feeling the exact same thing you're saying, and we don't share that, and now they're not getting the help that they need. When if we share these things and be open and honest, then that can be a part of a connection there that we can both relate, because everybody wants to feel understood, everybody wants to feel appreciated, everybody wants to feel needed, or that they're valuable. So that's a good point. Triggers elicit reactions different for everyone. Yes, triggers, they are my next question was, example of triggers, and these are all examples that we're talking about. And yes, they're different for everyone. Some of them can be the same, some of them can be completely opposite. Sometimes it's just it could be stress. It could be stress from working hard. It could be you just had an argument with someone, a close loved one, or somebody on the job. It could be just a thought that comes up. So when it comes to relapse prevention, we have to already know those things are going to happen. Life, just because we decide that, hey, I'm gonna stop drinking, or I'm gonna stop using drugs, life continues to show up. Emotions are going to still happen, but the thing is, a lot of times we have to separate emotions from facts. It's a fact that I am going to feel certain emotions, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the emotions that I'm feeling are a fact. So we have to learn to separate that, and the more that we come up with this relapse prevention, put this plan in place, then when these things come up, we're already prepared and we know what's going on, so it doesn't catch us off guard. So let me see what you put, David. Emotions and feelings will set us off. Absolutely. Mine are guilt, embarrassment, and shame, not feeling that recovery will work for me. Wow, that's, David, I thank you for your transparency. And you know what? I think, in the beginning, I know for me in the beginning of my recovery, I was there. Exactly what you're saying. And, I looked around and I saw, and another thing is always comparing myself to someone else, where somebody else was in their recovery journey. And that did me no good. So that shame, embarrassment, and I'm looking at someone else and I'm being like, man, it's working for them, but it's not working for me. Or I don't believe it will work for me. But the truth is, it will work for us. If we are taking we don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? If we're taking the blueprint of what worked for thousands, maybe millions of others, and we're willing to, what you all talked about, set our pride aside, humble ourselves. And for me, like I said, the first phase is connecting with God. So for me, what worked for me was surrendering to God and turning it all over to God and saying, God, help me to get out of the way. Help me to turn my will aside, because I know when I did things in my own will, it ended up terrible every time. So those are normal feelings, emotions. But remember what we just said, emotions, just because you're having emotions doesn't necessarily mean that they are a fact. So the more we are working these phases, we have an understanding of what causes relapse. What are the key signs of relapse? Then the more we'll be prepared when these emotions in life shows up, because life is going, what they say, is going to keep lifing, right? There's going to be bad times, there's going to be good times, there's going to be very challenging times. So the more we are equipped, have the tools in our tool bag to deal with these emotional ups and downs, then we can stay level and stay steady in our recovery, to where it's not triggering us to go back out and cause more self-destruction and self-sabotaging. So Quay, yes, proactive instead of reactive. Oh, I love that. Yes, proactive. So that's pretty much what the relapse prevention plan is. It's about being proactive, putting together a plan. You're working. That's including daily routines that you have set in place, because a lot of times when we have gaps in our schedule, so like for me, I have everything is linked right into my Google Calendar, and it's rarely a dull moment. And even in those dull moments, or those times where I don't have anything scheduled, now I'm still going to put something in there, whether it's reading or following up with people, whatever it is, going to exercise. It's never a dull moment, because I do understand now, when we have those gaps and we don't have something scheduled, that's a time where the cravings and the urges can hit us hard. And if we don't have anything in the place, it's easy to give in to those things during those times. So we definitely need to be proactive. Yes, self-discipline is very, very important. Absolutely. And the thing about it is, with self-discipline, that is something that we have to do. A lot of things are, yes, turning it over to God, turning it over and letting go. But self-discipline is something we have to make a decision of. We have to say, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do this. So, yeah, absolutely, self-discipline is so important. So, when I look at everything, as far as the having like a schedule and a checklist every day, and all of these things are going back to putting the plan in place. Um, Having meetings, like a lot of, I went to a lot of meetings in the beginning of my recovery when I got out of rehab. And this topic was my main topic in rehab, relapse prevention, because I knew I needed tools. I knew I needed something in place. When I left that rehab, then it was up to me, because in the rehab, I was in a safe place. I had 3 meals a day, a snack. They brought meetings into us. I had a counselor there. Everything was just right there. But when I got out of that rehab, and this goes back to what you said, Xavier, would I have the self-discipline to do these things on my own? And it really comes down to, how bad do you want recovery? How bad do you want this? What you only know the answer to that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some danger, some signs of serious danger that you're about to relapse. And okay, David, euphoric recall is also a trigger of mine. We talked about that, right, David? Euphoric recall, thinking about the good times, or the so-called good times when we were in active addiction. But as we talked about, David, it's always about playing that movie out. Yeah, it might have seemed like it was good times in the middle of the movie, in the beginning, when we went to party and got got lit, and and started thinking we're having fun partying and all that. But let's play the end of the movie out, right? The end of the movie for me was in my 1-bedroom apartment with the blinds shut and not wanting to see the sun, drinking a fifth of liquor all day long, having the weed man deliver my weed over, messing up on my career, on my business. It was total misery. It was depression. So we had to play that movie out. It was broken relationships, things I had said to family members and loved ones. So yeah, when we get that euphoric feeling in our mind that tries to trick us, remember, we know that alcohol and drugs is cunning and baffling. It's very deceptive. So we have to continue to play this movie out. And that's another thing in identifying the triggers and taking it to another level. What will happen if I do give in to this temptation, if I do go back out there? So when we start thinking about what really brought us all that pain and that misery and feeling helpless and hopeless, that's when we can say, all right, that euphoric feeling, false sense of feeling good is definitely not worth what's going to happen. So staying stuck in the preview and being able to play the movie to the bitter end, yeah, but that's where we really need to play the movie out. We need to play it out, because that's going to give us a strong motivation for us to not give in to these urges and these temptations and these cravings. Because when we're reminded of that pain, then pain prompts us to change. Without pain, and we're just feeling like, everything is comfortable and everything's okay, we're not really going to want to change. But when we start thinking about all of that pain that we were in, that's what prompts us to want to change. So we have to play it out to the bitter end. And for me, that movie was horror. It was terrible. It was it was total destruction on the way. So we have another chance, So this is another part of renewing our mind. Instead of looking at things, we can look at things now and say, I have another chance. This is renewing the mind instead of looking at all the past regrets, all the past things I did wrong. Now I can start looking at things and say, you know what? I'm a miracle. I have another chance at life. I have another chance to overcome this addiction, to get back, to get my family back, to build relationships back, to make an amends. All of these things are so important for us to stay on this path and stay and continuing to be free from our addiction. So these are definitely some awesome comments you all have going on. Like, that's what keeps me sober, and I'm going to be completely honest. Between that thought of your pain and the grace of God is what keeps me sober. Absolutely. Only by the grace of God is definitely the reason why I'm sober today. God giving me another chance, His grace and His mercy, and definitely be reminding myself of the self-sabotage and the self-destruction and how much pain I was in. And the more we do it one day at a time, the further away we get from those overwhelming compulsive thoughts and all of that. Even today, after 3.5 years almost of alcohol and drug-free living, the compulsive thoughts, well, I'm not even going to say compulsive, but the cravings and the urges and the thoughts still come up. But I know how far God has brought me through this process. I know how far my life has done a full 180, and I'm living on purpose now with a renewed mind. I have an awesome support group, family, from my pastor, from my sponsor, to network, just a network of brothers in the Lord, and brothers that are in the fellowships of AA, NA, all of these things, and now doing these healthy habits and routines. So it's so much better. It's so much easier now to overcome those urges and cravings when they come, because I can look and see how God has given me another chance, and I can look and see the fruits in my life by staying in this process. So hey David, I'm so glad that you came out, and definitely we'll be doing more podcasts in the future, and the topic, I thank you for the topic too. So this is good. So hey Josh, how you doing, Josh? Good to see you on here. Yes, recovery is every day, one day at a time. That was one of my main slogans in the beginning, because that's all I felt like I had, was one day at a time. And I really embraced that and said, you know what, I'm not going to worry about what I did in the past. I'm not going to worry about what's going to happen tomorrow, because the past, when I started thinking about the past, it will bring up feelings of regret. It will bring up feelings of just being resentful of things that had happened or I would resent myself or people that I felt like did something to me. All that guilt and that shame tied to what I did in the past would just start being overwhelming. Next thing you know, I'm anxious and just feeling bad about myself. And then when I start thinking about the future, I would get anxiety and being like, oh man, I don't know what's going to happen. So that everyday recovery, staying in the day, is so important. And just understanding the past is history, the future is a mystery, but the present is a gift. So staying right here today, right now, embracing what's happening now, has helped me tremendously. And I try to get to stay in that. Sometimes, I get, start going a little further, and it's okay to plan for the future, but to make sure you're present in the moment and doing everything you can right now to build your mind up, to build your spirit up, to build your, just to grow in recovery. So that's awesome. Hey Marina, I hope I'm saying your name right. I've been clean 14 years this October, and I still get cravings. I tried to tell someone else that this is currently in recovery that is currently in recovery because they couldn't believe I still have them. Yeah, I mean, like I said, and that's you talking about 14 years. So like I said, 3.5, I still get the craving, and this is so important with this topic today: relapse prevention and identifying triggers and cravings, because we have to have something in place, and just knowing that they're going to come is preparation. So that's I'm glad you shared that. Thank you for that, because someone needs to hear that. That this thing, just because we are now in recovery and have made a decision to say I'm not going to use, or whatever it is. For me, it was turning my will over to God and then making that decision, saying I'm not going to use, like Xavier was talking about, the self-discipline. And it's good to hear that. Just because we do that doesn't mean everything's just going to magically disappear. No, the cravings are still going to come, but yet over and over again we have to keep making that decision and say I'm not giving into this. But the good thing is, once we build up enough tools in us, build up enough times where we said no, I'm not going back to that, we start getting more confident in our recovery about being around it, because it's not going anywhere. It's always going to be alcohol around. It's always going to be drugs around. Whatever it is, it's always going to be around. But the thing is, now we have enough in us, because we have lived this thing out one day at a time, and we have overcome those temptations and cravings when they came in the past, that we can now look them head on and say, nah, I know where that's going to take me. I'm choosing not to do that, because I know what the end of that looks like. So absolutely, usually when I'm depressed, so that will be one of the triggers, depression. And these emotions, like I said, not all of them are real, but I don't discount a lot of them are valid and they're real. So when we start thinking about feeling depressed, and we start thinking about whatever it is that has you feeling a urge or craving, or that's a trigger, then we really have to start going back to getting inside to the root of why are we feeling like that. Why are we feeling like that? What is going on the inside? Did something happen? And for me, like I talked about in the phases, connecting with God, renewing my mind, and living in my purpose, and then the support group, the accountability team, and then healthy habits and routines. So as we're feeling these things, we need to go through all of that and say, all right, why am I feeling depressed? Is it because I don't feel connection with God? Is it because I stopped, talking to my accountability team? Is it because I didn't, I'm not going to meetings like I used to be? Did I switch something up in my healthy habits and my routines? And try to identify what it is, because those things are real, going through that. So I appreciate you sharing that. Like that's tough. And then Josh, you said, I agree, focused on the present. Every day is a gift. Yes. Every day is a gift. And once we change our perspective and continue to look at that, every day is a gift, because we all have something to be grateful for today. I don't, it could be, and I'm not discounting going through rough times, but we all have something to be grateful for. So let's keep the perspective on gratitude. That's another thing, a slogan I adopted, having an attitude of gratitude. Do I get it right every time? No, I don't. Things rattle me, but I do know that now I have tools. I have enough in me to go back to what has gotten me this far in recovery, starting with God, going to reading in His Word, edifying me, building me up, going to inspirational, motivational videos, spiritual videos that's talking about, building us up. So when we start doing that on a regular basis, we're going to be getting built up spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and this thing is about constant growth. Not that we never gonna get everything right and be perfect, but that's why I love it when they say, it's about progress and not perfection. So for me, the thing I say is the only thing I need to do perfect is not use, not take a drink of alcohol, not pick up a drug. That's what I need to do perfect. After that, everything else I'm gonna continue to grow. So thank you for sharing that, Josh. That's awesome. I love this group. So many feel like they are alone. They are afraid to share their true thoughts and feelings because they expect to be cured right away. I know a few people who gave up because they felt there was no helping them because they never took part in groups like this. Absolutely, Marina. Thank you for that comment. Absolutely. We were just talking about that, how pride gets in the way. We don't want to be judged. We don't want to be looked down upon. We want to, please people a lot of times. And the truth of the matter is so many people that need to hear this, that have gone through this, that can help us, that when we let these things out, it doesn't have control over us anymore. Because that guilt and that shame is so real that when we hold this stuff in and we don't talk about it, and once again, I'm not saying go out and tell everybody all your business, because some people will use that against you, but it's about having discernment, and when you're finding your support group, finding those that have a genuine love for you and care and concern, that want to see you doing well, that care about you. And we know those things sometimes because let's be honest, when we stop using, whether it was alcohol or drugs, when we stopped using, a lot of those people we thought were friends, they weren't truly friends, and I'm talking about people I know for 20, 30 years. So yes, we do need to have that safe space and people with wisdom and understanding and compassion for us, and understand that have lived experience. So we will have that safe space whenever we're going through something. We can talk about these things. That's all. That's what the phase 2 in the strategy that I came up with was basically that. The support group is so important. So thank you for sharing that. Y'all have some real good comments here. So let me see, Josh. Thank God we don't have to rely on our own strength. We can rely on God to carry us through the hard times and always be there beside us. Amen. Yes, God is definitely the foundation, and he's the rock in my recovery. None of this will be possible without God. He came and got me from the darkest places of my life. And for me, I had given my life to Christ at 43 years old, but I did not fully surrender until 6 years later. And I was still playing both sides of the fence. One foot in what I believe God was doing in my life, but the other foot was in active addiction. So I wasn't going to receive anything that way. Even the scripture talks about a double-minded man receives nothing, and is unstable in all his ways. And that was me until I checked myself into that rehab and surrendered to God fully. That's when the change, the transformation, the renewing of the mind, and all of the positive things started happening in my life. So we all are miracles of God. We've been granted another chance through the grace of God. So I 100% agree with that. So I definitely appreciate all of the comments, and like I said, we're going to be doing this on a regular. Before I close out here, I want to make sure no one has any other comments. Basically, we were talking about, the topic was relapse prevention, And we were talking about, I was going into some of the dangerous signs before you may relapse. And some of those signs are being frustrated with your support system, and now you are distancing yourself. You stop being honest. See, these are a lot of things that we all have touched on. We stop being honest with our support system. Now we're distancing ourselves and isolating. Now you're in danger of a relapse. You're complacent, and that's, remember we said emotional, mental, it is the beginning of the relapse, and then it turns into physical. So that will be an emotional, frustrated with your support team. You don't like what they're saying. They're being honest with you. You don't like that. Then the mental will be complacent. You're starting to think that you got this thing now. You're kind of like on autopilot. You're not doing the things that you were once doing. You said, or you're thinking you don't have to do the things you were once doing to keep you sober or abstinence from drugs. And now you're telling yourself, you know what, maybe I could have a drink of alcohol. I can do one or two, lines or whatever it is, whatever your thing was. So now you're already in the mental stage of relapsing. So these are dangerous signs. If you see any of these, you start telling yourself, there's another mental one. You start telling yourself, oh, I never get past a certain amount of time. Like after I get 30 days of clean time, I always go back. And you start buying into that, and you're telling yourself that because you got whatever time coming up. You got 6 months coming up, and you say, I always fail at this time. It's like you're almost making an excuse to go out there and pick back up before you even do that. So we have to be very aware of that. That's a dangerous sign. Then physically you switch the drug of choice or alcohol. Now you're saying, all right, I'm gonna just smoke weed instead of alcohol, or whatever it is. Just giving you an example. But that's a dangerous sign, because guess what? It's obvious that you have an addictive personality. So if you're going to another substance, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be around some of the same people, places, and things, and you already have an addictive behavior and mindset. So that could lead you right back either into the old, which you were the substance, or you can fall in addiction with this one. So that's a danger sign. We have to look at that. And then another one is you stop doing the things physically that got you there, that got you to where you are now. You stop going to meetings, you stop exercising, you stop your daily routines. So these are all dangerous signs that a relapse could potentially be on the way. So the main thing that I hope we all get from this is to have a relapse prevention plan. And that covers the 3 phases in the strategy, is making sure that we're connecting, we stay connected with God, we keep renewing our mind daily, living in our purpose. That's all phase 1. Phase 2, staying attached to our support group, our new family that's going to keep holding us accountable, that they're a trusted team of partners that we can confide in, that we're, whatever it is, going to meetings. It could be counselors, it could be sponsors, it can be therapists, it can be friends in the network, it could be church brothers and sisters, it could be the pastor. See, for me, it's all of those things. So, and then the other thing is developing and implementing new healthy habits and daily routines. Doing those things on a regular basis that are keeping your mind and your body moving in the right direction. Whether it's exercise, for me, what a typical day looks like with my healthy habits and routines is, God waking me up in the morning. The first thing I'm doing is I'm praying, I'm reading, I'm getting into the Word, I'm reading a devotional on recovery, how to celebrate recovery, a devotional for the day. Reading Proverbs, whatever day it is. Reading the Proverbs for that day. Then I'm turning on some Christian music, or watching a inspirational, motivational, spiritual video. That's starting my day off. So right at the beginning of the day, I'm trying to start off already built up in God, already connected to God, and then whatever's on the list for that day, getting to the checklist, getting to the calendar, doing my best to fulfill everything that I put on the calendar, and that's going to include also reaching out to support groups, talking to my support team, and then continuing to do the healthy habits and routines. So, I thank everybody who showed up for this episode number 1 podcast, Freedom from Addiction. If you're not a member of the group yet, then you can go to Freedom from Addiction. You can either join it through the link on this post that I posted about this first episode, or you can go straight to my page, my profile page, Malik Keen, and you can find the link on the profile to join Freedom from Addiction. So I thank everybody for coming out, participating, and enjoy the rest of your day. Have a blessed day. God bless.